Hi, I'm Steve Kaiser, and we're doing a little roundtable discussion for Veterans Day. We'll start off with Chuck over there. You have your name, your branch of service, including your rank and where you was at and what conflict or what time of the, when you did serve in the service and where you was at, I guess.
Chuck Pinkelman. I actually live in west of Yankton right now, Yankton, South Dakota. I was in the Army in Vietnam with the 199th Infantry. What other questions did you have?
Your rank.
Rank E3.
Where you were at over there?
Long Binh, which was near Saigon, which is now Ho Chi Minh City.
Roger?
Okay. My name? Roger Merkel. I was in the Army, 1966, 1968. I served in Korea. I was a cook. I had 6 tugboats I took care of, ocean-going tugboats. Went out in the ocean, picked the ships up for a lot of the ROC soldiers that went to Vietnam. And that was basically, went in May of 66, got out in May of 68. Anyway, that was my experience. It was quite an experience. Some of them had a lot tougher than I did, but it was actually a real great experience.
Thank you. Harry?
Well, I got drafted into the service in 1951. 27 of us had to come from Cedar County. We went down to Omaha Induction Center, and they wanted 3 volunteers for the United States Marine Corps, and out of the 27, there were none that wanted to volunteer. So he said, okay, line up against the wall. So we did. And he took number 6, number 12, number 18. I was one of the unlucky ones. You 3 men are going to be in the United States Marine Corps. Be on the train tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock, headed for San Diego, California. You'll get your basic training down at Naval Station in San Diego. So on the train we were the next morning. So then I got appointed to a certain company, and we had to go to the rifle range. So I thought, well, I better do the best I can, because that might be what's going to save my life if I'm a good shot or if I'm not. So I fired a real good score. Out of a possible 250, I think I got a 241. So they said, well, we're going to keep you for a coach. So I was lucky that way. I didn't have to go to the server, to the Korea right away. I was a rifle instructor. So all the recruits came through. We had to teach them how to shoot and fire. And so that lasted for, I don't know, 6 months or so. And then he told us, well, everyone's going to have to spend their time in Korea at some time or another. Yours is going to be right now. So then we got shipped over to Korea. And that was not a nice place to be, but we lived through it. I was a corporal, and we had a lot of battles with North Koreans. We lost a lot of men. I had a couple good friends that got paralyzed. One of them was from Kentucky. So when we got out of the service, he was paralyzed. So every year we went down, my wife and I went to Kentucky to visit him. And he was in a wheelchair all his life. So I just felt very fortunate. I never got hurt at all. It was just almost a miracle I didn't. But so when we got out of the service, I came back home, and I was just lucky. Somebody asked me if I wanted, what I was going to do. And I said, no, I was to Yankton looking for a job, couldn't find any. And it was Mr. Joe Tigas, and he said, well, my tenant wants to retire from farming, going to have a farm sale. I'm looking for somebody to take over that farm. So I said, well, I'm interested. He said, well, you got it then. So then I started farming, and that's where I ended up farming until I retired. So that's about the story of my life, and now I'm in town, retired.
Good. Thank you. Gene?
I'm Gene Weeblaus. I was in the service from 1963 to 65, stationed in Fort Hood, Texas. E4 specialist. They put me in as an MP, and that's what I did for 22 months. Not much problem there.
All right, thank you. Ed?
Ed Kleinschmidt, entered active duty December the 6th of 1966 until December the 5th of 1968. I served in Vietnam. I was with the 1st Infantry Division, and I was there from June 29th of 67 until June 29th of 68 during the Tet Offensive. I was E6. We went over as an escalation of the war. We went over with 1,500 guys on a ship. We left Tacoma, Washington. Took us 22 days to cross the Pacific. It was quite an experience, so I got experience on the, as if I would have been in the Navy, except I didn't have to do anything. We just lay around all day on the deck and there was nothing for us to do. It was a merchant marine ship that hauled us over there. When we got there, we were at the mouth of the Song Bay River, no, the Mekong River. And the water wasn't deep enough for the ship to go ashore, so they came out and got us with landing crafts, just like they used in the Second World War. So that was an experience. All I could think about was my uncle Frank on my mother's side was in the infantry in the Pacific, and they were landing. He was one of the first in on gosh, I can't remember which island it was now. Anyway, the landing craft next to him got hit by one of those kamikaze pilots. And that's all I thought about. I kept looking up. But we didn't even have weapons or anything when we got off the ship. And they flew us up to our new company, which was north of Saigon, straight north about 60 miles. And they issued us our weapons and went through a couple of weeks of more training there before because we were brand new guys. Brand new companies, nobody had any experience, we were all dumb. So we had quite a learning lesson to go through, and first patrol we went out on, the lieutenant stepped on a mine and blew his foot off, so we learned how to call in a dust off on our first patrol, which was another fresh experience. But anyway, I guess it was, I have some bad memories, but I have some good memories, and I like to keep the good ones. I still keep in contact with two guys every week. We call each other. We went through the whole thing together. And I guess that's, I farm now, and we raise a family, and everything is good.
Thank you. I'm Steve Kaiser, and I was in the Army from 68 to 70. I served in Vietnam. Kind of a funny thing with Chuck over there. He moved to Yankton, what, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And he moved in alongside of a friend of mine, well, Gene's nephew, Chuck Weeblehausen. And Chuck said he was visiting with his neighbor, and he said, I think he was in the Army in the same outfit you was with. And that's kinda unusual because the 199th is a pretty small brigade. We were light, swift, and accurate was our motto. But anyway, so Chuck and I got together and started visiting, and he was in Bravo Company, I was in Delta Company, 5th Battalion, 12th Infantry at the same time over there. So we had to cross paths, maybe even said hi to each other, just never realized it. But
Probably did.
we had to sometime cross, because
Well, we
you
were-
relieved us and we relieved you.
We were in fire bases together, which are pretty small areas, so we had to have contact now and then.
No, but it's just how small the world is, I guess, but it's just different how things have happened to all of us. But then we just like to go around, what effect did the war have on your physical health? Did you have any physical problems from?
Nothing that I'm aware of for me. I came out of it without any injuries and nothing physical that I'm aware of.
No not marijuana. Malaria, any,
Always took my malaria pill every day the way we were instructed.
I took mine, I carried for Dominguez, our platoon sergeant, for a while, and he took his, I took mine. He got malaria and I didn't,
That's something.
just different.
Well, we did see one individual that quit taking his because
You wanted out.
we were going to get into some pretty tough stuff, so he quit taking his malaria pill and got malaria.
And got it.
Yeah, but nobody else even got it that I'm aware of that I was with, so. No, came out of it real well.
Good. Roger? Any?
I had no ill effects as far as health. The only thing is I went in weighing 245, I come out weighing 180. So that was good. I was a little heavy, and so that part of it got me in good shape. So as far as any ill effects, none whatsoever.
Good. Harry?
Well, I went through hell and high water, but I come out of it, I didn't get hurt at all. My best friend, he got shot in the hip, he was paralyzed, and he was that way all his life. We go back to Kentucky to visit him nearly every year, until now he has passed away. So, I never got a scratch, I was just lucky as could be. But we went, supposed to be in the trench line, which runs all the way across Korea, about 153 miles. But we were in reconnaissance, we had to go out at night, go across the trench line, go into the enemy territory and see what they had for guns and trucks and noisemakers, what kind of equipment they had. That was scary, but we had a second lieutenant who was gung-ho, and he wanted to go, and he was in charge, so he led us all over. But he got hurt, he got injured, and got set back, so I never seen him again, but I heard he had survived. But I had a good life, I never got hurt, so I got a lot to be thankful for.
Gene, do you have any?
Ill effects? No, I didn't. I was in a peacetime army. I was stationed in Texas for 22 months, which I said.
Yeah, but you did say one time that you were, what, 5 months left when they took your outfit?
The levy came in, yeah, they took about 2/3 of our company, the MP company of the 1st Armored Division. They took, I would say, at least 2/3.
Sent them to,
But anybody under 100 days, which I was, didn't have to go.
Vietnam.
No Vietnam duty for me, so.
Ed?
I took my malaria pill too, very religiously, and another little one, I don't remember what that one was for. Two
Salt
pills I took. Anyway, I, just like you, had a buddy who I still talk to, that's one of the guys I talked to, Kaniho, he's a Hawaiian guy. He come down with malaria, and he still has malaria today, he battles that all the time. If he ever gets run down, it'll come back on him. But I never I was very lucky, I never got wounded. But we had a lot of trouble with this, what we call jungle rot. And even after I got out of the, and when I got back from Vietnam, I spent time in Fort Benning, Georgia. And I always had trouble with the sore would show up here, or, you know, and then I had that, even after I got out of the service, I still was battling that jungle rot. And so that was, but that's all gone now finally. It took a couple of years before I think my skin and everything got cleaned out. I don't know what caused that all, but it was crazy. But no, I never got wounded, and I'm physically good as when I went in. Well, not anymore, but age took care of some of that.
Yes, it does. I think it'll affect all of us that way with age is done. I guess, how do you feel about the war news from television when, I know Korea, World War II was different, then Korea was different, and Vietnam was different, and we get into the Persian Gulf, Iraqi war, it's different again, but just, what did you think, Chuck?
Well, I was disappointed, as I think a lot of people were, with the outcome of the Vietnam conflict. I was disappointed that the government took us in there and we left with our tail between our legs. I thought we should have won the battle and could have won the battle if it wouldn't have been for politics. So that was very disappointing to me after, you know, so many people giving up so much. And nowadays, we're in some conflicts again. We've had conflicts over the years. I think if we would have completed our mission in Vietnam and won that conflict, there would have been a lot less conflict afterwards, because they would have the idea that we were there, that we were gonna fight. If we fought, we were gonna win. So they wouldn't have probably confronted us so much. When it comes to the conflicts that have been going on and are going on now, I find it real difficult to find any news that I feel that I can trust on it. So I don't know what to think about the conflicts now. We hear a lot about fake news. There is a lot of fake news. So I guess that's my take on things.
Thanks, Chuck. Roger?
Well, this doesn't pertain to Iraq. One of the things I remember the most is everybody wore their uniform at home, or when he came home, and I remember after AIT, I had my orders, and so I was going to go home on vacation, or on leave, and I got in a plane in Dallas, Texas, and there was a lady sitting there with her daughter, and she said, "You're not sitting alongside of us." Never will forget that. And I thought, you know, so that's one of the things I remember.
That was the time. I don't know what, you know, we grew up with our parents and uncles and aunts that served in World War II, and how the whole country was together. And then we had the Korean conflict, and that started drawing the country apart. And then Vietnam, and it was the era, the music changed, the people's thinking changed, the college students got more into the dope scene, and I don't know if that changes your thinking, but you know, how disheartening here you're serving your country and you can't sit here.
No, and the hippie, I remember my sister picking me up in Denver at the airport, and I stopped to see her, and we went past the Capitol building, and there was a couple of long-haired people sitting on the couch, and I said to my sister, "What is that?" She said, "That's a hippie." That was the first time I
First
ever,
time you seen it hit.
yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, the difference. Harry?
I don't really have any remarks to make.
Okay. All right, Gene?
Well, I think the politics is way too much in the world today with any country we're in and the gain that some people get out of the rebuilding and all the problems in the Syrian and whatever war, and it's just too much politics.
Very true point. Ed?
Yeah, I agree totally with what Chuck said about not trusting what the news has on anymore, because I remember when they hit every province in South Vietnam and not one fell. But the news back here said that it was a victory for the North Vietnamese. So I knew better because I was over there. And I also agree with Gene, or Roger there, because when I got back from Vietnam, we landed in Los Angeles. And to greet us there, they knew our planes were coming in. We're a bunch of protesters, and of course the black people were having their thing at that time also, and so there was all kinds of pressures going on. They called us baby killers, they ridiculed us as we sat there waiting for our next flight out. So when I got home, then going to church the next morning, and I came down without my uniform on. And Mom says, "Where's your uniform?" And I says, "Mom, I can't take any more hassle." So that's one of my regrets in my life, is that I did not wear it. But I couldn't do it anymore.
But that's the way it was at that time. It was very disheartening from hearing all the stories from the older people, how they all respected. And you get on a plane and you're told not to sit here. I mean, it's very disheartening how
Things are way different now, though.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
It has turned around completely, which is very fortunate.
Yes.
It was a very different time, back then, like you said, with all the protests and the Black Panthers, the Black Power, the changing of desegregation. It was huge in this country. But in my personal feelings is, when Gene said about the political end of it, which is very true, but whenever there's war, people die. And that's all kinds of people. That's civilians, that's babies, that's little people, grown-ups, soldiers. People die. That's war. And now, in my opinion, it seems like we're at war, but nobody has to die. And that's not how things work. You take World War II, what the civilians that gotten killed, did we watch that little documentary? This
44 million or something.
something like that. That's servicemen, civilians, that's people.
That's the Second World War.
Second World War that died from what was going on in Germany and what was going on in Japan when the Japanese attacked us. So that's huge. I mean, it's just mind-boggling. You have a hard time thinking about that. Well, we got a good one here. Have you visited any war memorials since a lot of them been put up DC or?
I haven't been to DC, but I did see the traveling Vietnam Wall or whatever they call it. And, a few others in small towns like Crofton. Crofton has a very nice one.
Mm-hmm.
But the traveling Vietnam Wall was very interesting to see. But other than that, not a lot.
Roger, have you?
yeah, I was in Washington DC and visit Arlington Cemetery and the changing of the guards and, yeah, that's pretty neat to watch. And of course the wall, because I have a cousin that's on there. And so that was real interesting.
Harry?
Yeah, we've been to Washington DC, spent about a week there. We've seen everything, you know, the different monuments in World War II. The one from Iwo Jima. And it was interesting. We spent a couple of days down there in Washington DC. So I've seen everything I need to see.
Good.
I was in Washington DC and saw several monuments, including the Arlington Cemetery and the Vietnam Wall, but really what impressed me was the Korean soldiers. They showed them, there was 5 or 6 or whatever in the group, and they almost looked like they were alive. It really was a nice monument.
Good. Ed?
Yes, I was on the first honor flight for Vietnam veterans, and we went to DC, and it was a big day, and we saw all the monuments, and I got a lot of peace from being at the wall. I went to these traveling walls too, and that was good, but to be at the real one and the size and the everything, and I was able to find all the names of all the guys that I knew that we lost over there, and so I gained a lot of peace from being there. It was a very good experience.
Pretty fortunate, some of us guys that were over in Vietnam got together in 1990 to go to the Vietnam Wall in DC, and we had a couple guys from Milwaukee, we met them, and they're your comedians out of your outfit, you know, always joking and laughing and screwing around and everything, and they were having a good time riding the bus over there, you know, yelling out the windows. But when we got to the wall and to the first you walk past the 3 soldiers and then you go to the wall, they got very sober. It was a very sobering to see that names of people you know and guys you know. And like you said, your cousin was on there. My wife's first cousin is on there. That's pretty sobering thing to see. But also, we did go to Arlington National Cemetery and watch changing of the guard. And I was pretty fortunate. I got to stand with him from here to Gene from the guard. This is August. It's hot and humid, and he was sweating. Sweat was dripping off his nose, running down his chin, in his chin here, and he never flinched. He never moved. Now, try that sometime when you're sweating. That is very difficult. And then to listen to what them honor guards go through, it's just amazing what they do. And that was very, very impressive, you know, and that's a great honor, and they stay there 24 hours a day, all the day. Even when the hurricane came through, they stayed. Through the winter and blizzards, they stand guard. That's respect, you know, and it just isn't published enough for the people of the country to see, because that's quite an honor and quite a demonstration of what, you know, as servicemen, of which we all are, went through. And I don't care what part of the service, you know, in the service. I was surprised growing up when I was little. I thought everybody was infantry, but it takes, I forget what they said, 35, 45 guys behind the scene to support one man out in the field. Never thought about it. You gotta eat, or you'd never make it. You gotta have somebody taking care of the mail, somebody to take care of your pay. How about your clothes? They gotta be cleaned, or you gotta get new clothes. You know, transportation. How you gonna get there? Can't walk across the ocean. You gotta have somebody taking care of the mail, somebody to take care of your pay. How about your clothes? They gotta be cleaned, or you gotta get new clothes. You know, transportation. How you gonna get there? Can't walk across the ocean. You gotta have somebody taking care of the mail, somebody to take care of your pay. How about your clothes? They gotta be cleaned, or you gotta get new clothes. You know, transportation. How you gonna get there? Can't walk across the ocean. you know, all the different things that pertain to what just that one soldier does out there. It's quite
I
something.
think they usually say about 10% of the people are infantry or combatants, let's say, but you always needed everyone else. They were very instrumental in your survival.
Yeah, you know.
So everyone was important, no matter what their job was.
You know, the medics, you needed MPs so they could keep us in order when we got unruly.
And they
A
did.
lot of that.
I know I had a little run-in with them down in Fort Benning, Georgia one time,
I can't imagine.
but I deserved it.
That's what we believe.
No, another one of the things that, you know, remember I was talking to the other day, but their son went through the service and he was got into the missile side of it, the computer side, and when he got out of the service, this big company in California wanted him to help with their computer outfits and their radars because of his training that he got from the service. You know, and like, I know I was in infantry and you were too, and nobody really wanted to hire us when we come home for that.
Wasn't a lot of demand.
Not for that, not in the real world. But like Roger, you know, with the cook, what he did with that, I mean, very successful business and a very good cook. His food was always good, you know, which is, and there is a lot of that. Around here, we don't have, you know, the whole state of Nebraska won't even be a suburb of LA.
Right.
So we don't have the people here that got into the different things, but it's surprising the more you talk and look around what the occupation that the service put them in, how they use that in civilian life, it's really rewarding, you know. And for a lot of us, it didn't, you know, you didn't become a state patrolman. You had enough time, hard time being an MP in the Army.
Became a flunky.
But it's amazing nowadays what they can do, you know, the pilots that are in the Air Force and then get into civilian pilots. It's really something. What, was there any personnel that you met or any important person that you met while you was in the service or anything or traveling the world, you know, we was all over the world from Korea to Germany to Vietnam. Was there anybody that you met, Chuck, did you get the chance to meet General Bond?
No, I didn't. We were in our own little world there. I didn't meet many people other than those I was stationed with. If you wanted to talk about important people, they were the important people. We kept each other alive. So those are probably the most important people that I encountered.
Roger, did you run into anybody or?
Well, I guess I went on a retreat from Pusan up to Seoul for a week retreat, and they left me off the bus and I was walking down the street. Of course, there was no street lights. It's dark, it's at night, and I'm about half scared. And finally got to the compound. I thought, well, I was kind of thirsty, so I walked into a pub or whatever. Anyway, there's a guy from Crofton sitting at the bar, Larry Meyer. He was sitting at the bar. So, you know, I walk into this, how many miles away from home, and there sat somebody that you went to high school with. So that was that was quite a thrill.
Yeah.
Other than that, that's about it.
Harry?
Nothing spectacular.
Nothing spectacular. Gene?
No, I didn't really come on anybody very important. I was in on a mounted band
I've heard the name.
past the bookstore where President Kennedy was shot from about a month and a half after he was shot. 2 months, but then I have 5 brothers, and of the 5 of us, or 6 of us, I had a brother in the Navy, a brother in the Air Force, a brother in the Marine Corps, and I was in the Army, so we covered all the main branches of service. 2 older brothers were in the Second World War, so that would be it, I guess.
Ed?
Well, I was one of the lucky guys who got to go to see Bob Hope's show.
Really?
Yeah, so that was quite an experience. I didn't meet him personally, but I was on the outside of the aisle and he walked by. But I didn't grab him or shake his hand or anything. But it was quite an experience, and but we were about, oh, I can't remember, maybe 50 feet back from the stage. You could see pretty good. It was a very nice show and quite a uplift, but when they left we had to go back and do what our duty was. So, but it was, I felt very fortunate to be one of the guys who was able to go to that. And also I did meet my cousin over there who I did not even know was over there. He was driving, he was in the engineers, and we were leaving out to go on patrol, and this engineer truck was coming into the base camp, and I recognized him. I says, "Gerald, is that you?" And he looks up and, "Oh yeah." So then I asked him where he was at. They were in the same, just across from where the ammo dump was. And so that we got back from that patrol, I went over and we visited. And he left to go home shortly after that. And another time I met a guy who grew up 2 miles from me, and we ran into each other in a fire support base, and we had a nice visit too. And I says, "Kenny, what are you doing over here?" And he said, "The same thing you are." So those were the, other than that, and I guess that's.
With General Bond, I got a little decoration he pinned on me, but I don't know if you remember, but General Bond was one of the only few generals that got killed over in Vietnam.
Oh, well.
He got killed the 1st of April. I left in March. Was you there when?
Let's see, I left about the middle of April in '70.
Yeah, he got killed the 1st of April, so you hadn't been there yet when he, and you hear so many different stories of how he got killed, but somebody run into a bad ambush. Do you remember who it was?
I don't. The only thing I remember is that they said that a sniper got him. They landed, his helicopter landed, he stepped out and a sniper got him, but whether that's accurate, I don't know.
I got to meet him a few times, on different occasions, and he was a real soldier's man. I know we came in one time and remember how Libby was, where the helicopter pad was. Well, that's where I was, right on that corner with the mortars when we came in. And we just got in like at noon, so we're drinking beer and trying to read letters from home, and got our shirts off and our pants rolled up, and we're dirty, we're stinky, not shaved, and they came and said we had to put on, shine our boots, clean clothes, and shave, and take a shower because the general's coming. And we said, yeah, we'll do that. And about 5 minutes later, here he came, and we thought, man, we're dead. But he came up to us. He wanted to know how the Army was treating us, how our food was. We apologized for not being dressed, and he said, "This is war. I don't expect you to be this way." He's a very common man, is what I see of him. And I know we had good food for 2 days at the mess hall. And we went back out in the field, and it was, sea rations were better than our mess hall. The only good cooks I ever saw was I got to sneak into an Air Force base one time and have some food. That was good. But in the Army, our cooks they had the food, but
A lot of them, I don't know if they were trained cooks or not. Sometimes they just ended up in the mess hall
yeah.
for one reason or another.
You talk to different people I have, and man, they love their cooks. Do you ever have any of that, Roger?
Yeah, there was, you know, the ration part of it is, I mean, they get pretty good stuff. And the waste is unbelievable how much they
Oh.
waste. I mean, I'd throw it out, 100 gallons of milk in one day, you know, because we had 900 guys that we served. That's when I was in stateside. And you do that 3 meals a day, you get a lot of stuff that's, you just throw it away. But I mean, they always got good stuff, it was that the cook screwed it up, you know. And, anyway, good experience, so.
You know, 'cause, it was different, it's funny though how you meet people, you know, when he's talking about different people that you run into, like you ran over in Korea, and, you know,
Yeah.
strange, you don't. It, I know, did you go through 90th replacement, Chuck?
Yeah.
Yeah. That, Bob Deach, neighbor, lived up in Fordyce, that's where he worked, that was his job, to run 90th replacement over there, so I got to see him when I went over. I landed in Cameron Bay, and got a sign there, and then we just went to Long Bend, and that's where we went from there to the 199th. But, I was pretty fortunate, we came back out of the field in October, back to B&B, so I snuck off base and went over to see Bob Deach, and he worked 12-hour shifts, and that time he was working the night shift, yeah. So he had off during the day to sleep, but he had a barracks that had air conditioning, he had sheets, and he broke starch between fatigues every day. Well, he had civilian clothes, so I got put on a pair of civilian shorts and a t-shirt, and right across the street from him was a 24-hour steakhouse. And he ordered steaks for me, so I had steak at 2 o'clock in the morning.
That's right.
He had alcohol too. No, he treated me like a king, you know, but that's just how, it was strange to be that close, you know, to find him.
Well, you were born and raised a block away from it.
Yeah, right across the street, you know, and he went over a couple months before I did, you know, so it was funny how things happen, you know, so far away, and yet we're just across the street from each other growing up. Kind of different.
I suppose I'm a little out of line here, but I do have something of a unique story about my experience. When I went to Vietnam, I had a brother already there, and he'd been there for 6 months when I got there. So they were pretty sensitive right then about brothers serving together. They didn't want them both to die. It was bad publicity. So they stationed the 2 of us on a mountain pulling security guard for a signal unit, which had to do with all the communications in southern Vietnam. So we spent 6 months there together, and then when he went home, then they sent me to the field. And he had been in the field before I got there. So then as I came home, then I met another brother going to Vietnam. And he was assigned to the 101st Airborne. They're further up north in Vietnam. He ended up getting hit a couple times and getting out of the service then after that. But anyway, I guess our family kind of got our fill of Vietnam.
I would say. But it was the time, it was the age we were in, and it was the time that it was. You know, that's just what it was then. You know, you went in through the 70s after, you know, the draft quit and went to the lottery. You know, things have really changed in the service, and now it's an all volunteer. You know, and the National Guard, they activate them. And I know I talked to a guy that was in Iraq when that war went on, and he said that the thing that he felt, so he was active in the Marine, but the National Guard that came over didn't have the training, and he said the the ones that got killed and hurt because they didn't know what was going on, he felt was so disgusting because that shouldn't happen. You know, you should have more experience, where when you're into a full-time active service rather than National Guard, but that's who they activated and that's who we have now as a defense, except for people that we do have in the full-time service, but they've cut the budget for them people, and the pay nowadays is so much different.
Yeah,
Remember, what was your pay when you went in basic?
I think $69,
That's
something like that.
Yeah.
I lost that the first night poker game.
I must have went nice. How about you, Harry? What was your pay when you first went in? What was they paying you a month?
$30, $40 probably.
Yeah, I had half of it sent home. I think we got $75, and then I had sent half of it home. I only had $37 left to spend. That was a
And no
mistake.
place to spend it.
What did we actually get when we were overseas? We got a overseas pay and a combat pay.
You guys made,
Then it boosted it up to
Yeah,
200 maybe?
10% over.
Maybe I'm way off there.
And 15% more
But when I
combat.
had like you had the combat pay and that, but I was in E6, but my pay was $325 or something.
yeah.
With combat and overseas and,
You got, as D6, you got clothing allotment.
well, yeah, it was the same clothes everybody else
I
wore.
don't think they give you clothing allotment. But I think our combat pay was $65,
Yeah, I don't remember what it was. You're probably right there.
I think, but, yeah, that,
I thought we maybe would have got 200, but that's just a guess.
you talk about, basic training, I don't remember who the guy was, but he liked to roll dice, as well, I like to play dice. So, with the first paycheck, everybody won a little bit, he didn't win very much. The second paycheck, nobody had anything, he took it all. I had 30 days, and I was smoking at the time, that's tough, and no money, in basic training, you know, just.
I remember my second paycheck, there was some guys from New York in our basic, and anyway, they wanted to play dice. So they got this sheet out there, this blanket, and threw on that blanket, and there was a guy, his name was Black guy from out east. He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Nebraska." He said, "I can tell." He said, "Those guys will take your money in 10 minutes. He said, "They can roll whatever they want to." He said, "Make them throw it up against the wall." Then he said, "You got a better chance." He said, and they did. They took my second paycheck too. First one was poker, the next one was dice. I guess the funniest thing I'd just like to tell you about when we was in basic, Vern Zabadell from Menominee, he was with me, and he was quite a bit older, 4 or 5 years older. Of course, he was not quite as scared as some of us. So we went to a gas chamber. It's hot, we're in Louisiana, 100 degrees or 90 degrees. So they told us not to shave, you know, so anyway, some of them did. So we went through the gas chamber and we come out, and everybody's, you know, coughing and gagging because of this gas chamber. And we had this captain, great big tall fellow. He said, "Is everybody happy?" And I heard this voice in the back and I knew it was Vern. He said, "Hell no," he said real loud. I didn't know exactly what he said, but anyway, he said, "Come here, soldier." He went running up there, got in front of him. He said, "Well, you're the only one in the company who's got any guts." That was really funny, because I thought, Vern, don't say nothing. Anyway.
Yeah, from being from the Midwest, you know, like you said, Nebraska, the New York guys and the East Coast guys,
Yeah.
when we went in, there was more of the marijuana was getting strong, I guess. And I went to Fort Lewis, Washington for basic and AIT. And this guy was from Richmond, California, to San Francisco. And we flew down there on Veterans Day weekend, because we had a 3-day weekend. We wasn't supposed to leave Fort Lewis, but we went AWOL and flew down to see his parents. And that's where I got introduced to marijuana. And it was normal to them, and I'd never smelled it before.
Yeah.
It was different, but, yeah, the people, they were so much more, this guy had 13 tattoos on, and he got his first tattoo when he was 11 years old. And the only tattoos I ever seen around here was somebody that had been to the service, and that was few people that had tattoos, you know. And now, look at the tattoos.
Oh, yeah, that's
Women,
common.
women have more tattoos than men do, I think.
Yeah.
Just the difference in things. Do you have a tattoo? Oh, that's right, Grandpa's here. The new thing that we have going on is, and just a little question here, how do you feel about the NFL players taking a knee during the national anthem? Chuck?
Well, I don't like it very well, but interestingly enough, when I was a youngster, I was a pretty avid sports fan. I'd say probably in the late 70s, early 80s. I quit watching sports completely at that time because I came to the opinion that they were all a bunch of overpaid delinquents. And that's been my view ever since. And it's unfair to say they all are, because there are quite a few of the people in sports that do a lot of good work. But maybe now I'll just say they're overpaid. They're not essential to our country or our economy. So as far as I'm concerned, if they can't stand up, they should be fired. And if we didn't have football, they're not essential anyway, so let her go.
Thank you. Roger?
Well, of course, as growing up, you know, anytime they played the national anthem, you know, you took your hat off and you didn't move. If you did, your dad would, you know. And so I think they ought to stand and respect the flag and the anthem. That's my opinion.
Harry?
I agree with Roger. I think that if the police are there, if they don't understand, cooperate for their country, kick them out the door, out the gate.
Gene?
Well, I think the people that are real fans need to quit going to games for about a month. And they cut their pay down from $1 million to about $25 a game for a while and see if they're able to stand up then.
Well, they do this saying they have the right to express their opinions, but I see the flag as the symbol of the reason they have the right to express their feelings. And it looks to me like they are desecrating the reason or the symbol of for why they can do this. You know, I think it's dumb. I think they're not thinking too far. I think it's out of place. They should find a different mat or floor format to express themselves in, other than the symbol of what gives them the right to do it.
The overall picture and the number of people in the United States agree with what everybody said here, is respect that flag, because we're all here, but we all know people that have died protecting that flag. And for these people to do that, to show such dishonorable disrespect and getting as much attention as they are for being such a small minority, it's really disheartening to the American people. And yet, they, like you said, quit going to the games. It's a game. You know, it's huge money. These people are very talented, take a golfer, you know, just talented people in that, and we're all talented in what we do.
Retirement.
You're really good
I've
at it.
got a real talent.
You're real good at it. But I mean, that's the thing, and to show disrespect for the flag, for our younger generation, my grandchildren, you know, that's disheartening to have, they think that's all it is, you know, I don't have to do that. That, like Roger said, you didn't stand still and take your hat off, your dad cracked you alongside the head, and that, to show respect. And it's another thing this country's going through, and we have to get it changed, but I still feel the majority of the American people are behind this country and not against it, and yet the minority people seem to be getting the attention.
I think the general feeling of the public is that, as was said, if there's a complaint, use some other forum to bring that to the forefront. People that are making that kind of money can get attention. They can bring attention to the issues that they're concerned with. So I'd like to see them do that, and that's basically what you said. And when you get into the underlying problems that they're talking about, you get back again to where you really don't know what the truth is, because these days it's hard to get to the facts. And I watch news quite a bit, more than I should probably. But I would like to see the facts involved in what they are protesting. But you can't get the facts anymore, because one side has this set of facts and the other side has that set of facts. You really don't know what to believe anymore. So
Is it like our polls on the election?
I think so.
You know, I know I bet with a friend, he did some work for me, but he was so afraid that Hillary was gonna get in as president, and he said, I'll bet you $50 that she makes president. I said, that's easy. I said, it's $50, I'm gonna win from you. For some reason, I had confidence that Trump was gonna win. But anyway, a week or 10 days, 2 weeks before the election, he called and he said, Kaiser, I hate to take your money like that. And I said, well, why don't we put another zero or maybe 2 zeros behind it? I said, I'm gonna win. Well, he called me at 6:30 the next morning after the election and said, you know, Kaiser, he said, next to my dad, you're the smartest man in the world I know. I said, no, it just happened. But the polls all showed. Now, where did these polls come from? Then why didn't she win? I mean, where's this at?
Yeah,
You
it
know, when you
depends
said
on
about
who's taking the
truth,
poll,
you know,
which side's taking the poll.
you
Same
make
thing
a
as the
poll,
facts. A fact is a fact, but people somehow come up with different facts for the same issue.
right, wrong, or indifferent. It's what it is what it is.
Yeah, now it's everything's political, hard to find the truth, just the way it is.
Yeah, yes it is. Is there any one thought about your experience that when you was in the service that you would like to share for the future generations of our country?
The only thing I would say myself as a war experience is difficult, but you can either let it destroy you, or you can allow it to make you stronger. And I didn't want to be destroyed, so I feel that my experience made me stronger. So consequently, I look at my combat experience as being positive.
Roger?
Yeah. Well, my experience was, I wouldn't wanna trade it for anything, really. It makes you grow up and find out there's somebody that's gonna tell you what to do and you better do it. And, so that was my experience, and like I said, I wouldn't trade it for nothing.
I'd agree with that.
Good, bad, or indifferent,
Right.
the experience, you met people that you'll never forget the rest of your life, good, bad, or ugly. I mean, there's all kinds. And,
Yeah, and I guess being overseas and in a country that's poverty stricken, to see it, see how people live over there, you just don't realize how lucky we are around here. You know, I don't think there's too many people around here, at least, go hungry every day, or, you know, ride a bike to work, and, you know, if they can scratch 20 bucks up, they'd be lucky. And that's the same way, I'm sure, in Vietnam.
yeah, the third world countries. Harry?
Well, going to some of these foreign countries and seeing how all those kids and families live, we can be thankful we got a country like we got. I was in Korea and I seen the bad parts of Korea, and we just gotta be thankful for what we got in this country.
Very true. Gene?
Well, you probably learned a lot about taking orders and following rules and doing what is expected of you. That's the biggest thing I learned.
And I feel too, to give a man that's due his respect, give him respect. You know, is what I learned too. It takes you a long way in life, being respectful of people. Ed?
Well, basic training, when you go in there, they pretty much break you down, they take all your hair off, and that takes your identity away. And then you become a number among everybody else, and everybody's the same. There's no arrogance among you, and nobody's got a trump card over anybody else. You're all part of a unit, and they train you to operate as a unit. It's just not me anymore, it's us. We're all, and that's the way our country needs to be more of. It's about our country, it's not about us. It's not about the Democrats or the Republicans and we seem to polarize now in our country. It's so terrible with what I want for my life, and instead of for the good of our whole country. I learned that in basic, that you lose your identity and you become greater as a greater part, or as something greater. It's a very good experience, even though the bad, it was still totally worth everything.
Talking to different guys, like I wouldn't take $1 million for not being able to go through what I did, but I really don't care to take $1 million to do it again. You know, it's kind of it's a real experience to what Ed said, was to be a group, to belong to a group, and everybody is the same. You know, some people like Roger, you went in at 240. I tried to gain weight. I was only 120 pounds. I come out 119. You know, I was smaller. You know, but that.
Active.
Right, there you go. But that's just, and I turned 19 when I was in basic, and I turned 20 when I was over in Vietnam. Yeah. So I just remember Paul Donor was a World War II vet, and went to his 40th wedding anniversary, and he had his uniform on display. And he said, I can still get in that. And man, I said, I can't get, mine's short, the jacket comes up to here, can't get it buttoned. And I said, well, how old were you? Well, I said, I was 26 when I got up. that's a lot of difference between 20 years old and 26. You're more matured
Sure.
and you know, if you stay the same, but a lot of us were, how old were you when you went in?
I think probably 18.
19.
19? 19?
23.
See, Gene was older.
Yeah, I had done a little time in the National Guard before I went active duty, so I think I turned 23 when I was in Vietnam.
23.
Yeah. But I gotta tell you a story about sizes and everything. Anyway, my granddaughter went through ROTC and became a lieutenant, and she asked me to be her first salute. And so I thought, wow, this is an honor. And she says, you know, Grandpa, I'm gonna ask the company commander if you can wear your uniform for this thing. I says, you don't need to ask him, I can't wear it. Then I called my Hawaiian buddy and he says, Ed, take a scissors and cut the back open, you'll get it buttoned.
My grandson went to the National Guard this summer and then graduated down in Missouri, Fort Leonard Wood. So they got invited. He invited us down there, so we got to go to the graduation. Military is a lot different today. The drill sergeant of the cycle was a lady.
Really?
Yeah. There was 31 girls in his company, graduated from basic training. And I asked, how does that work? I mean, you know, because I know females are females and men are men. I said, did they have, well, he said they don't have to do the physical end of it, the PT test, and remember the running, the monkey bars, all that. He said they have a different demand on what they have to do than what we have to do. You know, so they talk about women's rights and women being equal, yet they still have their own set of rules, you know, in what it is. But it was really different than when I went through, but we're more of a peacetime, and when I went through, there was a lot of us back then, you know. That
Well, I had two of my sons went active duty, regular Army, and they both took their basic training in AIT in Missouri.
Leonard Wood.
And we went out for my older son's graduation, and they had girls sleeping in the barracks with the guys. They couldn't shower together, but they did occupy the same building. And they did march together, and he brought home his, they give you a DVD or a video of your training. And the girls went through the bayonet course just like the boys did. They stabbed the dummy with their bayonets, and I was really surprised. And I asked Paul, any trouble with this? No, he says, this is really strict, and there ain't, nothing gets out of line. So I guess it's very important who's in charge, because that sets the pace.
Well, that was true in the service. Who you had leading you, and
Yes.
it didn't make a lot of difference. I know Captain Moon, you know, and you knew him, but he was the only good captain that I ever had over in Vietnam, you know, because he took care of you. You know, the other captains we had weren't very good.
Yeah, we had one that was big trouble. Matter of fact, I just about got court-martialed one time because of him.
Yep, they were out there.
He told us we had to do an online assault of a bunker complex in the jungle. I said, no, we're not doing that. And he was gonna court-martial me for it, and I said, well, you can bring me up on charges if you want, but when I tell the story of what you just ordered here, you're gonna be the one that's gonna be in the brig. And he never brought charges. But that isn't the way you operated in the jungle. That was senseless.
Inexperienced, war hungry, or
Well, he was definitely after a body count, and I was into survival, and so were the rest of the guys that were in the platoon, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was lucky his body didn't get counted.
Yeah.
I was in the Marine Corps. The best duty I had was the week we had to serve KP.
Was it?
Cook. I enjoyed that the most because the cook was the best guy. We had all the steaks. Everybody else was eating poor food. Everyone got to take home a quart of ice cream to the barracks. So that was the best duty I had. That was 1 week to KP.
Things kinda went wrong there.
Sure.
I have a closing question. I think, is there anything that you would like to add to what we did here, I guess?
Somebody else take a turn. I don't have anything right now.
Well, I guess there was about a 3-month period that Coca-Cola treated us every night when we got back into our defensive perimeter. The helicopter would come in and bring us a bunch of Coke, cans of Coke, and it was all warm. And they brought a 50-pound block of ice for each platoon, 30 guys, or 40 guys. We usually had 30, we're supposed to be 40. But anyway, then you'd take that Coca-Cola and you'd spin that on that block of ice, and the first couple of guys, then pretty soon you'd get a hole in there. And it didn't take a couple of seconds, and that Coke was so cold you couldn't hardly drink it. The same principle as an ice cream freezer, I guess. But you know, when I grew up, I drank root beer, and that's all I drank. But now I drink Coke because they sold me on their product. and we really looked forward to that every night. But that was about a 3-month period, and then for some reason they didn't do it anymore. But it was to treat us, and we appreciated it very much.
You rolled Coke, we rolled beer.
We were in the 199.
Whatever you get your hands on. But we didn't, not in the field, I mean, this is
Yeah.
when you got back to base camp, but we used to steal ice from the mess hall. Go and steal a block of ice, and you go get a warm case of beer and start
Start
rolling
spinning.
beer. Keep one going while you're drinking the other one.
But I don't know, what was it, 2 weeks that we was out, 3 weeks?
In the field, actually,
In the
mission.
field, yeah,
I always figure 14 days.
14 days, yeah.
That's
I remember one
close to
time,
what
I
we
think we
had.
were out like 20 days or something before we got back in. And that's when we would, otherwise we'd be out in the jungles.
Yeah, well, it's just like talking about our wages, we were talking about a little bit earlier. We had no place to spend money. It was the best savings account I ever had in my whole life. I saved almost 100% of what I got paid. There was no place to spend money. Now, if you wanted to buy beer, if you got somewhere where you could buy beer, which was rare, beer was 10 cents a piece. I think pop was too, probably. Cigarettes, if you wanted them, were free. Came with your C rations.
Well, we had a sundry pack, we called it. It was a box, probably this big, and this tall. And that came once a month to us out in the field. There was writing paper in there, pencils. Most of it was cigarettes, cartons and cartons of cigarettes. And candy, bars of soap, a lot of soap. One of these boxes was for a platoon, and we would get one every once a month. But we stayed out we stayed out quite a while. Most of the time they'd drop us our fatigues even, and that was funny because we had some pretty big guys, and nobody sized these fatigues according to what you needed. And the big guy, he could barely get his stuff closed, and the little guy was wearing something that was dragging, his hand legs were dragging on the ground. But anyway, that was we didn't have a place to spend money either, and I didn't smoke, so everybody wanted to be my friend because I had a carton of cigarettes in there that somebody wanted.
I smoked the non-filtered, so a lot of guys didn't like them, so I always had plenty of cigarettes. Pall Mall, Camel was hard to come by, but that was my favorite.
I watched that, whatever you call it, documentary that was on TV recently. It was 10-part series. And they were interviewing ex-enemy of ours. He said, we always knew where the Americans were, they smoked cigarettes. So basically what you did is you gave away your position. Although,
They had a smell too, though, you
in,
remember.
well, the thing
Yeah, they
is,
smell marijuana.
especially when you're in the jungle, okay, so you smell cigarette smoke. You really don't know which way it's coming from. You know they're around though. You know the enemy is around. And yeah, you could smell those guys too.
You know, when you come to a base camp that was active, you could smell it.
Yeah.
You know, the smell, well, even in Korea, that's a
Opium.
different smell than.
They all smoked there,
Over there.
opium, them opium pipes, they'd sit there on the street and never did try it,
Skin to nail, huh?
Is there anything you'd like to add, Harry?
No, the only thing I didn't like about it is these guys smoking. I didn't smoke, but when you're in a foxhole, they always wanted to smoke. I thought that was the dumbest thing you could do, because you can see those lit cigarettes.
Yeah, at night.
They know where to shoot then.
Yeah.
We never
You always had a few dummies with you.
never smoked at night.
Yeah, we didn't either, but you wouldn't have been able to see it anyway in the middle of a dense jungle, but still, yeah, at night we didn't.
We were never in a jungle, we were mostly out in, well, it was trees, but it was rough ground, foxholes,
Hills, more hills you had over there.
more hills, yeah.
Yeah.
in the hills. Always tried to get on the back side of the hill if you could. That's where you stayed overnight. And commander said, move forward in the morning.
What camp was you at, Earl? What camp, when you came in? Casey, Kaiser?
No, I was in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, but I mean, where was you stationed over there?
In Korea, we were north of Seoul.
There was Camp Kaiser and Camp Casey up there. So,
We were right east of Panmunjom, where
okay,
the
yeah.
searchlight was going. You weren't supposed to shoot at that searchlight. We were about 5 miles east of that. But
Gene, you have anything?
No, not really.
You wish you'd have stayed as an MP,
Oh,
been a
yeah.
police officer all this?
I'd be retired from everything then.
Ed?
I guess, I'm good with what was been said, and I'm glad we got together. I think it was a really good thing.
That's what, I'd like to thank you guys for coming. They're gonna make a CD of this, don't you? And then they're gonna give each one to you so you can laugh at each other. But also, do you run this for Veterans Day then?
Yep, it'll be carried on the local cable station for the town to see
For
Well,
Veterans Day, and
a
so
couple times a day, all week of Veterans Week.
all week, okay. But I
What
appreciate,
station is that on? Is it, it's probably a Nebraska station,
Yeah, it's our cable company here in
Oh.
Hardington.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I bet we don't get that. In South Dakota.
yeah. No, we don't, it just,
We're over in enemy territory.
well, yeah. How come you deserted Nebraska anyway? You,
Good neighbors too.
that's just in the town of Hardington, or
That's why I
they give it out?
Yep,
You live
and then
next
the
to
rural community
Chuck
Rural
Rowe.
community.
Yeah. around Hardington.
He's a good neighbor.
Chuck
Pretty good friends.
and Romaine.
Yeah.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming today, and happy Veterans Day when it gets here, and with that, I guess, if you got anything? Thanks, Chuck, Roger, Terry, Gene, Ed. Thanks for coming. Thanks Hardington Telephone Company for having us. Thank you.
Thanks.